Hello! We're excited to show you our native speech capabilities. Welcome back to the English journey. Today, we are talking about the things that keep us awake at night with excitement, our dreams and goals. I'm Anna.
And I'm Abel. We all want a better life, but sometimes we don't know how to describe what we want. Today, we will give you the English words to plan your future.
That is exactly right, Abel. And before we begin, I want to say something important. If you are listening to this podcast right now, it means you already have a dream. You already want something more. You want to speak English better, or you want a new job, or you want to travel the world, or maybe you simply want to feel more confident in your daily life. Whatever it is, this episode is for you.
I love that. And I think dreams are so beautiful. When I was a teenager, I used to dream about so many things. I wanted to be a musician, a football player, a chef. I had so many dreams. But then I grew up and some of those dreams disappeared, not because they were impossible, but because I never turned them into something real. I never made a plan.
And that is the key point we want to start with today. There's a very important difference between a dream and a goal. Let me explain it simply. A dream is something you think about. A goal is something you work toward. A dream lives inside your imagination. A goal lives inside your calendar, your notebook, your daily routine.
Okay, I really like that explanation. So a dream is like sitting on your sofa and thinking, I want to speak perfect English one day. And a goal is like sitting down and writing, I will study English for 30 minutes every single day, starting tomorrow.
Exactly. And there's a beautiful word in English for a dream that feels very strong and very personal. The word is aspiration. Aspiration means a strong desire or ambition to achieve something. For example, you can say, my aspiration is to become a doctor, or my aspiration is to move to a new country. It's a wonderful word because it carries emotion. It feels bigger than just a simple wish.
Aspiration. I like that word. It sounds serious. It sounds like you really mean it.
It does. And that brings us to the first big question of today. Why do humans need dreams? Why do we need aspirations? Scientists and Hello! We're excited to show you our native speech capabilities. Welcome back to the English journey. Today, we are talking about the things that keep us awake at night with excitement, our dreams and goals. I'm Anna.
And I'm Abel. We all want a better life, but sometimes we don't know how to describe what we want. Today, we will give you the English words to plan your future.
That is exactly right, Abel. And before we begin, I want to say something important. If you are listening to this podcast right now, it means you already have a dream. You already want something more. You want to speak English better, or you want a new job, or you want to travel the world, or maybe you simply want to feel more confident in your daily life. Whatever it is, this episode is for you.
I love that. And I think dreams are so beautiful. When I was a teenager, I used to dream about so many things. I wanted to be a musician, a football player, a chef. I had so many dreams. But then I grew up and some of those dreams disappeared, not because they were impossible, but because I never turned them into something real. I never made a plan.
And that is the key point we want to start with today. There's a very important difference between a dream and a goal. Let me explain it simply. A dream is something you think about. A goal is something you work toward. A dream lives inside your imagination. A goal lives inside your calendar, your notebook, your daily routine.
Okay, I really like that explanation. So a dream is like sitting on your sofa and thinking, I want to speak perfect English one day. And a goal is like sitting down and writing, I will study English for 30 minutes every single day, starting tomorrow.
Exactly. And there's a beautiful word in English for a dream that feels very strong and very personal. The word is aspiration. Aspiration means a strong desire or ambition to achieve something. For example, you can say, my aspiration is to become a doctor, or my aspiration is to move to a new country. It's a wonderful word because it carries emotion. It feels bigger than just a simple wish.
Aspiration. I like that word. It sounds serious. It sounds like you really mean it.
It does. And that brings us to the first big question of today. Why do humans need dreams? Why do we need aspirations? You know, scientists and psychologists have studied this for many, many years, and the answer is quite simple. Human beings need a sense of purpose. We need to feel that we are moving towards something. We need to feel that our lives have direction. When we have no dream, no aspiration, no goal, life can feel very flat, very boring, very empty.
That is so true. I remember a period in my life, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when I had no real goals. I was just going to work, coming home, watching television, and sleeping. Every day was the same. And I started to feel very tired, not physically tired, but tired inside, like something was missing.
And what changed for you, Abel?
Well, a friend of mine asked me a very simple question. She asked, if you could do anything, absolutely anything, what would you do? And I said, I would learn to speak Spanish fluently. And she said, okay, so why aren't you doing it? And I had no answer. I had no good reason. I was just waiting for the right time, waiting to feel ready, waiting for some magical moment that was never going to come.
And that is one of the most common human experiences. We wait, we procrastinate. Procrastinate is a very important word for today. Procrastination means the habit of delaying something you should do. You know you need to do something, but you keep pushing it to tomorrow or next week or next year. I will start my diet on Monday. I will study English after my vacation. I will apply for that job next month. Does this sound familiar?
Oh, it sounds very familiar. I am guilty of procrastination. I think most people are. It's not a character flaw. It's not because you're lazy. It's usually because you're afraid. Afraid of failing. Afraid of looking silly. Afraid of starting something and not finishing it.
That is beautifully said, Abel. And we'll come back to that topic of fear later in this episode. But first, I want to talk about something that I believe is the most important step of all, more important than any method or any system. I call it finding your why.
Finding your why. Can you explain that more?
Of course, a dream without a strong reason is just a wish. It's fragile. It can disappear very easily. But when you connect your goal to a deep, personal, emotional reason, it becomes much stronger. It becomes part of who you are. So let me give you an example. If your goal is to learn English, the surface reason might be because English is useful. Okay, that's fine, but it's not very powerful.
Right. That doesn't make me jump out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. But what if your real reason is, I want to learn English because I want to be able to help my children with their homework when they grow up? Or, I want to learn English because I want to read my favorite author's books in their original language? Or, I want to learn English because I want to walk into a job interview and feel completely confident. Now, those are powerful reasons. Those reasons have emotion. They connect to your life, your family, your identity.
So the question isn't just what do I want? The question is why do I want it? That's deeper.
Much deeper. And when you find your real why, something changes. You stop thinking of your goal as a task. You start thinking of it as a gift you're giving to yourself. The discipline becomes easier. Discipline, by the way, is another key word today. Discipline means the ability to control yourself and do what you need to do even when you don't feel like doing it.
Discipline. That word can sound scary sometimes. People hear discipline and they think of punishment or strict rules. But I think discipline is actually a form of love. You do the hard thing because you love your future self.
I absolutely agree with that. And now let's talk about a very famous method of turning a dream into a real goal. It's called the SMART method. You may have heard of this before, but we're going to explain it in very simple, everyday English.
Yes, please. I remember the first time I heard about SMART goals, and I thought it sounded very complicated, but it's actually very simple. Can you walk us through it, Anna?
Of course. SMART is an acronym. That means each letter stands for a different word. S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A stands for achievable, R stands for relevant, and T stands for time-bound. Let's go through each one together.
Let's start with specific.
Specific means clear and detailed, not vague, not general. A vague goal is, I want to get better at English. A specific goal is, I want to learn 20 new English vocabulary words every week. Do you see the difference? The specific goal tells you exactly what you're going to do.
That's a great example. When I started learning Spanish, my goal was just, I want to speak Spanish. And that was too big and too blurry. When I changed it to, I want to be able to have a 10-minute conversation in Spanish about my daily life, suddenly I knew exactly where I was going.
Perfect. Now, measurable. Measurable means you can count it, you can track it, you can see your progress. I want to be more healthy is not measurable, but I want to walk 10,000 steps every day is measurable. You can check your phone, you can see the number. Numbers are your friends when it comes to goals.
And measuring your progress feels so good. I remember the first week I tracked my Spanish vocabulary, and I could see that I had learned 40 new words. I felt amazing, like a little celebration.
That feeling of progress is so important. It keeps you motivated. And this connects to the idea of a milestone. A milestone is a small but significant point of progress along your journey. Think of it like a road trip. Your final destination might be far away, but there are signs along the road that tell you how far you have come. You have traveled 100 kilometers. You have traveled 200 kilometers. Each milestone is a reason to feel proud.
I love that image. So your goal is the final destination, and your milestones are the signs along the road.
Exactly. Now, let us continue with SMART. A is for achievable. This means your goal should be challenging, but it should also be realistic. If you have never run in your life, your goal should not be to run a marathon next week. That is not achievable, and it will only make you feel bad when you fail. But I will run for 5 minutes every morning this week is achievable. And once you achieve it, you can make it a little bigger. Run for 10 minutes, then 15, then 30.
It's like building a muscle. You don't lift the heaviest weight on the first day. You start small and grow stronger over time.
Beautifully said. R is for relevant. This means your goal should actually matter to you. It should connect to your life, your values, your bigger vision. Vision is another great word here. Vision means the picture of the future you want to create for yourself. Your vision is your big, beautiful dream. Your goals are the steps that take you there. So if your vision is to have a successful business, then a relevant goal is to take an online business course, not to learn to paint. Both are fine activities, but painting is not relevant to your business vision right now.
That makes sense. You have to make sure your goals are pointing in the right direction, in the direction of your vision.
And finally, T is for time-bound. This means your goal needs a deadline. A deadline is the date by which you must complete something. I want to learn English someday is not time-bound. I want to pass my English B2 exam by the end of next year is time-bound. The deadline creates a sense of urgency. It tells your brain that this is real, this matters, and there is a clock ticking.
I think the deadline is actually the part that most people forget. I used to have goals with no deadline, and I would just keep putting them off. But when I said, I will be able to have a conversation in Spanish in 6 months, suddenly it became real. I started studying every day.
And that's the power of the T in SMART. So to summarize, your goal must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Write those 5 words down. Put them on your wall. Every time you make a new goal, check it against these 5 things.
Now, Anna, I want to talk about something that I think many people struggle with, and it's actually connected to procrastination. We talked about how people wait for the right time, but I want to go deeper. Why do people wait? What's really happening in their minds?
This is such an important question, and I think the honest answer is fear. Fear is perhaps the biggest obstacle between where you are and where you want to be. And there are several kinds of fear that stop people from starting. The first is the fear of failure. People think, what if I try and I fail? Then everyone will know I failed. It's better not to try at all. But of course, this thinking keeps you stuck forever.
I know that feeling so well. When I first thought about starting this podcast, I was terrified. I thought, what if no one listens? What if my English sounds bad? What if people laugh at me? And those fears almost stopped me from starting.
And what helped you start anyway?
I asked myself a different question. Instead of asking, what if I fail, I asked, what if I succeed? And then I asked an even more important question. What is the cost of never trying? And when I thought about spending my whole life wondering what if, that felt much worse than any possible failure.
That's a beautiful mindset shift. And here's something practical I want to offer to anyone who is waiting for the right time. Stop waiting for Monday. Stop waiting for the 1st of January. Stop waiting to feel ready. Because I have a secret for you. You will never feel completely ready. Readiness is a feeling that comes after you start, not before.
Can you say that again? That's important.
Readiness is a feeling that comes after you start, not before. The moment you take the first step, even a very small step, you will feel more ready. Action creates momentum. Momentum means the energy and force that grows when you keep moving forward. The first step is always the hardest. Every step after that becomes a little bit easier.
So the advice is, don't wait for 5 minutes to start. Start in the next 5 minutes.
Exactly. What is one tiny action you can take right now in the next 5 minutes towards your goal? If your goal is to learn English, you could write down 5 new words. If your goal is to exercise more, you could put on your shoes and walk outside. If your goal is to start a business, you could open a notebook and write down one idea. One small action. That's all it takes to begin.
I want to move on to something that I think is really important, and it can be a difficult topic. It's the topic of failure and setbacks, because the honest truth is not every goal goes smoothly. Sometimes things take much longer than you planned. Sometimes you miss a day. Sometimes you miss a week. Sometimes you fail completely and have to start over. What do we do then?
First, I want to say something clearly. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a part of success. Every person who has ever achieved something great has failed many times along the way. The question is not whether you will face obstacles. The question is what you will do when you face them.
And I think the first thing to do is to be kind to yourself. When I was learning Spanish, there were weeks when I studied almost nothing, and I would feel so guilty, so disappointed in myself. And that guilt actually made it harder to start again, because I thought, I already ruined it, what is the point?
This is called the all or nothing mindset, and it is very destructive. People think, if I cannot do it perfectly, I might as well not do it at all. But that is not how progress works. Progress is messy. Progress goes forward, then backward, then sideways, then forward again, and that is okay. That is completely normal.
So what should someone do when they fall off track?
There is a wonderful concept in English called pivoting. To pivot means to change direction without giving up on your overall goal. Imagine you are walking toward a wall. To stop? No, you turn slightly and find a new path. You pivot. So if your original plan is not working, maybe the plan needs to change, not the dream. Maybe you were trying to study 2 hours every night, and that was too much. So you pivot. You study 30 minutes every morning instead. Same dream, new path.
That is such a healthy way to think about it. The goal does not have to change. The method can change. Pivoting is not quitting. Pivoting is being smart and flexible.
Exactly. And there's another concept related to this, the concept of resilience. Resilience means the ability to recover from difficulties, to bounce back. Like a rubber ball. You can throw it against the floor as hard as you want, but it will always come back up. Resilient people are not people who never fail. They're people who always get up again after they fall.
I want to talk about something very specific now, because many of our listeners are on a very personal journey, the journey of learning English. And I think this is a goal that many people struggle with, not because it is impossible, but because it can feel very overwhelming, very far away, like the destination is hidden in a cloud.
And this is where I want to offer a completely different way of thinking about language learning. So many learners believe that the goal of learning English is to speak perfectly, to never make a mistake, to sound exactly like a native speaker. But I want to challenge that idea very gently.
Please, because I know so many learners who are afraid to speak because they are afraid of making mistakes, and that fear is actually stopping them from practicing. And if you do not practice, you cannot improve. It becomes a circle.
It is a circle, yes, and it can feel very frustrating. But here's the truth about language fluency. Fluency does not mean perfection. Fluency means the ability to communicate your ideas clearly and naturally, even if you make some small mistakes along the way. Think about this. When a native English speaker is talking to you, they don't care if you use the wrong article. They don't care if your grammar is not perfect. They care about whether they can understand you, whether they can connect with you.
That is so freeing. When I heard this for the first time, I felt like a heavy weight was lifted from my shoulders. It meant I could start talking right now, with the English I have right now, not the English I dream of having one day.
Precisely. And the more you speak, the more your English improves. The mistakes actually help you learn. Every time you make an error and someone corrects you or you notice it yourself, that's a learning moment. That's your brain growing. Mistakes are not embarrassing. Mistakes are evidence that you're trying, and trying is the only way forward.
So for all our listeners who are learning English right now, here's your goal. Not to be perfect, but to be understood, to be brave enough to open your mouth, to be willing to make mistakes and learn from them. That's true progress.
And I would add, celebrate every milestone along the way. Did you understand a full sentence in an English movie today without subtitles? Celebrate. Did you write a paragraph in English without using a dictionary? Celebrate. Did you have a short conversation with someone in English? Celebrate. These small victories are the building blocks of fluency. They are your milestones on the road to your vision.
Now I want to talk about something that might not sound very exciting, but I believe it's the real secret to achieving any goal. And the secret is daily discipline, small, consistent habits.
This is my favorite topic because so many people are waiting for a big moment, a big opportunity, a stroke of luck. They want to win the competition, get the promotion, meet the right person, and then everything will change. But that is not how most success stories work.
Tell us more about that.
The truth is that most success is built from very boring, very small actions repeated consistently over a long period of time. Think about a river. A river does not break through rock with one powerful explosion. It breaks through rock slowly, drop by drop, day by day, year by year, but eventually the rock has no choice but to give way. That is consistency. Consistency means doing something regularly, without stopping, over a long time.
Consistency. And I think people underestimate the power of small actions. If you study English for just 20 minutes a day, every single day, do you know how much time that is in 1 year? That is more than 120 hours of study. Over 120 hours. That is incredible. That is like taking a full university course.
And there's a concept that I absolutely love called getting 1% better every day. If you improve by just 1% each day, by the end of 1 year, you are not 1% better. You are approximately 37 times better. The math sounds crazy, but it is true. Small improvements, compounded every day, create enormous results.
37 times better. That is the power of compound growth, and it applies to everything. English, fitness, your career, your relationships, your financial habits. Every single area of life responds to consistent daily effort.
And the key word here is priority. A priority is something you consider more important than other things. When something is truly your priority, you make time for it. You protect that time. You do not let other things push it away. If English fluency is your priority, you do not wait until you have time. You make time. You wake up 20 minutes earlier. You listen to a podcast during your commute. You practice vocabulary while you cook dinner. Because the truth is, we all have the same 24 hours. The difference between people who achieve their goals and people who do not is usually not talent. It's not luck. It's not money. It's how they use those 24 hours. It's what they choose to prioritize.
And this is where the concept of a routine becomes so powerful. When you turn a goal-driven behavior into a routine, you no longer need willpower to do it. It just becomes automatic. Like brushing your teeth. You don't wake up and debate whether to brush your teeth, you just do it. That's the goal. Turn your English practice into something so automatic that you don't even have to think about it.
I have a little routine I want to share. Every morning, I spend 15 minutes listening to an English podcast while I have my coffee. Then, during my lunch break, I write 5 sentences in English in my notebook. And every evening, I try to read at least 2 pages of an English book. None of those things is very big, but together they add up to about 30 to 40 minutes of English practice every single day. And after 6 months of doing this, my English changed completely.
And that's the beauty of it. You didn't need a special class or a very expensive program or a year abroad. You just needed 30 minutes a day, every day, without stopping.
Consistency. That's the real secret. There's one more thing I want to say before we reach our conclusion today, and it's about the journey itself. We live in a world that celebrates the destination. We celebrate the graduation, the job promotion, the wedding, the finished book, the medal, but we don't always celebrate the journey, the long, difficult, beautiful road that leads to those moments.
And I think that's a mistake because the journey is where most of your life actually happens. The destination is just one moment, but the journey can last months or years. And during that journey, you're changing, you're growing, you're becoming the person who is capable of achieving the goal. And that transformation is actually the most valuable part.
I love that so much. You know, there's a famous saying in English, fall in love with the process, not the product. The process is the daily work, the small habits, the early mornings, the times you wanted to quit but kept going. Fall in love with that. Appreciate that, because that's where the real magic happens.
And every goal you work toward is teaching you something. Patience, courage, discipline, resilience, creativity. These are lessons that no classroom can fully teach. They can only be learned by actually doing the hard thing, by choosing your dream over your comfort zone every single day.
And to our listeners who are learning English, I want to say something directly to you. You're already doing something brave. You are listening to a podcast in a language that is not your mother tongue. You are choosing to grow. You are choosing to be uncomfortable so that you can become more capable. And that is not a small thing. That is a big, courageous choice, and you should be proud of yourself for making it.
Absolutely. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. You don't have to know every word. You just have to keep showing up. Every episode you listen to, every word you learn, every sentence you write or speak, it all adds up. Drop by drop, the river cuts through the rock.
Before we close today, I want to give you one simple homework assignment. Just one thing. Take out a piece of paper or open the Notes app on your phone and write down one dream, one thing you truly want in your life. Then ask yourself, why do I want this? What is the real emotional reason? Then, using the SMART method, turn that dream into one concrete goal, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Write it down. Look at it. And then, in the next 5 minutes, take one small action toward it.
Just one small action, that's all. Because that one small action is the beginning of everything. It's the first drop of water in your river. It's the first step on your ladder toward that beautiful cloud you've been dreaming about.
And in the comments below this video, we have a very special question for you. We want to know, what is one big goal you want to achieve in 2026? Write it in English, share it with us and with this community. Because when you say your dream out loud, when you write it down and share it with others, it becomes more real. It becomes a commitment, and we'll be here to support you every step of the way.
That's such a wonderful idea. And remember, our community here at the English Journey is not just about learning English. It's about growing as a person. It's about building the courage to dream and the discipline to act. We're all on this journey together.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for choosing to invest this time in yourself. You are your own most important project. Never forget that. Keep dreaming, keep planning, keep showing up, and keep speaking English even when it feels difficult.
especially when it feels difficult, because that's exactly when the growth happens. Until next time, I'm Abel. Stay motivated, stay consistent, and remember, your dreams are not too big. Your first step is just too small to be afraid of. Take it today.
And I'm Anna. Thank you for listening to The English Journey. If this episode helped you, please share it with a friend who needs some motivation today. Leave us a review, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next episode. Keep going. You're closer than you think.